House of the Dragon Season 2 just got its first proper trailer. First off, the season is dropping in summer 2024, likely in June or July. Remember, Season 2 will be shorter this time around and is rumored to only be 8 episodes. With that out of the way, let's break it all down. The first shot shows Rhaenyra viewing Storm's End from afar. Remember, Storm's End, the seat of House Baratheon, was where Aemon started his chase of little Luke and Arax, with the chase culminating in Luke's death. And this event would officially start the Dance of Dragons Civil War. Season 2 is supposed to pick up right after Rhaenyra was told about Luke's death, so expect an emotional first episode as Rhaenyra plots her revenge. Next we see Aegon, now officially King Aegon II, walking up to sit the Iron Throne. Daemon is then clad in his iconic Targaryen armor, grabbing his helmet, heading off to war. We see a Targaryen camp for the Blacks. Remember, the two sides are split into the Blacks and the Greens, with Rhaenyra's forces being the Blacks and Aegon's being the Greens. The Greens and the Hightower army is on the march, likely to sack Duskendale, who were supporters of Rhaenyra. This is followed by a shot of an army awaiting battle. From the heraldry on the shields, it looks like House Rosby and perhaps House Stokeworth. While all of this is going on, a voiceover from Otto seemingly trying to reassure Alicent that despite the mistakes of their coup, a peaceful resolution can still be achieved. But Alicent basically shuts this down and sets up the stakes that war is inevitable and many will die. Next we see Criston Cole beheading a lord presumably loyal to Rhaenyra, probably at Duskendale, which is a big mistake. Keeping rival lords as hostage is a way smarter move. When you behead someone's lord, their widow, sons, and bannermen rally against their killers. Just like when Ned Stark was killed, Robb and all of the North marched on King's Landing. All this is to show Cole as a man of action, not built for diplomacy, which will play a more important role as the series progresses. We also get a close-up of Cole, showing that he has the hand of the king chain, meaning he has replaced Otto Hightower. This is likely after Otto's diplomatic approach to the war has allowed for the Blacks to gain an early advantage. So King Aegon appoints Cole as hand as he believes war requires a more violent approach. Also, I love the design for the Greens. Note their yellow Targaryen sigil. It's supposed to represent Aegon's golden yellow dragon Sunfire, who we barely saw in Season 1. It looks great visually and will make it easier for the audience to keep track of who's who in the middle of all the battles yet to come. We see another of those weird little orb things that each of the small council members had in Season 1. The orbs were just a symbol of office, similar to the hand of the king chain. Next, Aegon on the Iron Throne, wearing the original Aegon the Conqueror's crown, which was crafted from Valyrian steel with a bunch of square-cut rubies set into the steel. Remember, the point of Aegon II wearing the Conqueror's crown, as well as having the Conqueror's sword Blackfire, are to demonstrate that not only does he share the Conqueror's name, but also he has two of the most important symbols of Aegon's rule, giving him the appearance of the rightful king. On the opposite side, we have Rhaenyra, still wearing her father Viserys' crown. Next, we see Alicent praying. We then see what looks to be a fisherman with a dragon flying overhead. The dragon looks like Seasmoke, the mount of Laenor Velaryon. Remember, Laenor faked his death and bailed on his responsibilities as well as his dragon, but a bond between dragon and their rider lasts until death. So until Laenor is truly dead, Seasmoke cannot be claimed by another, which has led many fans to theorize that Laenor will return, perhaps to fulfill his duty to protecting his family before dying. This would be a change from the books, but gives Laenor a complete arc and frees Seasmoke up to be claimed by another, which does happen in the books. This is all part of the Dragon Seeds plot, which sees the Blacks try and gain a few more dragons to their cause, but to control the dragons they need riders. So all the bastards of Dragonstone with a hint of Targaryen blood, a key component to dragon bonding, are gathered to try and claim the wild dragons, with Seasmoke being among them. I have seen others online state that this character looks like a certain shepherd who winds up being very important to the story later in the Civil War. We see the Hightower army again on the march, building up to the main land battle we will see in this season at Rook's Rest, which should take place around the middle of the season in episode 4. A shot of Rhaenyra looking over the map of Westeros, all backlit by fire. A single shot of Corlys Velaryon. Next we see Daemon dropping Darksister on some fool with a weirwood tree in the background. I would guess this scene is happening at Harrenhal, which is where Daemon was traveling to at the end of Season 1. He does this to establish a centralized base of operations from which the Blacks can wage an offensive, but also to gain the support of the Riverlands, which has historically been one of the most important regions in any Westerosi conflict. I'm not exactly sure who he would be killing, as Sir Simon Strong does give up Harrenhal without conflict in the books. Perhaps he is killing one of Larys Strong's spies still at Harrenhal. Next up is Aemon looking longingly at the throne. Remember, in Season 1, when trying to locate his brother to be crowned king, he stated a desire to rule. But despite this desire and the belief that he would be a better king, he has demonstrated a level of honor, or at least respect, to the traditions of inheritance, at least how the Greens view it. We get our first shot of northern Westeros. This could just be some Night's Watchmen. We know that there are going to be a few scenes set at the wall, or it could be the Winter Wolves, a group of 2,000 old-timers loyal to House Stark, who travel south to support Rhaenyra. Remember, Jace was sent to convince Cregan Stark to uphold his house's oaths to support Rhaenyra. Unfortunately, winter is upon Westeros, and marching south in full force is just not possible at this time, but the Starks don't forget their oaths. So instead, they send the small force of Winter Wolves. The reason that they can send the Winter Wolves is because the force is primarily made up of old men, who all agreed that it is better to march south than be an extra mouth to feed and a burden to their families, especially while resources in the north were scarce during winter. So instead, the Winter Wolves march south for glory, adventure, and likely death. Next up is an interesting shot of Alicent in all white looking over a lake. This could be a sign that she has become regretful of the war she has brought to the realm. Remember, it was her misunderstanding of Viserys' final words that led to her trying and succeeding in getting her son Aegon crowned. But now, with all the bloodshed her actions have created, she wears white instead of the typical green, now becoming a woman who cannot stand the color green and everything it represents. We see Rhaenyra and Syrax meeting with Sea Smoke and an unnamed rider, either showing that Laenor is back, ready to fulfill his duty, or that Sea Smoke has found a new rider among the dragon seeds, in which case it confirms that Laenor is actually dead. There is not a single case of a dragon taking more than one rider at a time. Dragons only take a new rider when their old one dies, so this scene could confirm to Rhaenyra that Laenor is dead. Next, we see a shot of the dragon pit, where the dragons are looked after and housed. This was also the location of Aegon's coronation, where Rhaenys and Mealy's burst through the floor, killing scores of small folk. That scene never happened in the books, and a lot of people said that it was one of the worst changes that the show made. But I think, retrospectively, it might have planted a seed in the small folk of King's Landing to turn against the dragons. And as the series progresses, the dragon pit will be the site of some pretty horrific stuff, which will further instill this hatred of dragons from the small folk. And eventually, the dragon pit will become a monument of their suffering, which will finally culminate in a satisfying conclusion. We see Helaena Targaryen in a veil of mourning. Next, we see a bunch of battle scenes and an army getting wrecked by dragonfire, likely the Battle of Rook's Rest. All this while Rhaenys speaks to Rhaenyra about how bloody war can be. Although it seems like she is warning Rhaenyra about how bad it's going to get, I get the vibe that she might be trying to convince Rhaenyra to unleash the dragons in the field. Remember, Rhaenyra was apprehensive about using the dragons due to the destruction they can create. But as the season goes on, it will be clear that they cannot be held in reserve any longer, and only through their might the war will be won. We see Baela, one of Daemon and Laena Velaryon's twin girls. She is riding her dragon Moondancer. Daemon mentioned Moondancer in Season 1, but we didn't actually get to see her. Next, a riot in King's Landing. Not exactly sure when or why this will be happening yet. We see what looks like a member of House Bracken drawing his sword. Remember in Season 1, we saw this little Spitfire, Samwell Blackwood, kill a rival Bracken while trying to convince Rhaenyra he was a suitable match. It looks like we might get to see some more Bracken-Blackwood drama. The two houses have one of the longest running rivalries of any houses in the Game of Thrones universe. And every generation or so, one house does something to royally piss off the other. So this Bracken will likely be out for revenge against Samwell Blackwood, which in turn will lead to House Blackwood seeking revenge, and on the cycle goes. We see Daemon again, clad in his Targaryen armor, this time while mounted on Caraxes. A shot of Helaena Targaryen with a knife to her throat. Not to be cheesy, but I hope this scene doesn't get too bloody. One of the Cargill twins swinging his sword in rage. Remember, the brothers were both members of the King's Guard, who ended up choosing opposite sides in the war, which can only end in tragedy. We see Aemond and Rhaenyra each on their dragon saddles. Rhaenyra never actually fights on Dragonback in the books, but I think the show might be changing this. And finally, a shot of Vhagar flying over a battlefield. Overall, the trailer was amazing, and I can't wait for more. If I missed anything, be sure to comment, or if you disagree with my takes, tell me how much of an idiot I am. Cheers.